we're nearing the end of the finish line. The manifestos have been released. The chatbots are running wild, and it's soon time to vote. And with us today, I'm Tim Diacono with Jonathan Chile on the Who's Who Talks podcast, and we're with economist JP Fabri to try and get some sense of the madness, of the chaos out there, what is real, what isn't, what is doable, what is just, nice to dream, but let's leave it at that. JP, which proposal excites you the most of all that you've seen from either party, from all parties?
I think before jumping right into the proposals, and I think this is something that has been lacking in this campaign, right? Framing Malta's growth, but also within the wider context that we live in and the world that is going to be completely different to the one we're accustomed to. And I think this is quite a problem in Malta, that the debate forgets the context. It's like Malta operates in a vacuum. When in reality, if there is a country that does not operate in a vacuum, it's a small, open island economy like Malta. Okay, so I think we need to unpeel the layers before jumping into the proposals. And I think one thing that I have found a bit lacking in this campaign is actually this broader debate around the context and where we really want to go as a country. Because what has happened, I feel, is, it can actually be a risk to Malta, that our success becomes our Achilles heel, right? So we have been blessed up to a certain limit with a very good economic performance over the past few years, right? The numbers show it, statistics show it, rankings show it. We've done well. We performed well. The economy has proved to be resilient. Very good growth rates, averaging 6%. You don't really find that, right? Crisis after crisis, we've been performing still well, bouncing back. But we risk taking that for granted, right? And resilience is not something that you take for granted. And in today's day and age and fragmented world, it's not only resilience that we need to talk about, it's readiness.
What are the greatest risks?
Well, the greatest risks are, if we look around, even if we open foreign news portals, the fuel crisis is something that most probably not even the 1970s crisis is as close to what can happen unless the Iran war miraculously closes, right? So, and even here, we seem to be cushioning ourselves because the biggest risk is, and it's a short-term risk for Malta, is aviation fuel, jet fuel, right? Now, even if we see what happened yesterday, the UK lifted sanctions on Russian fuel. So that already should start lighting these alarm bells that, listen, there's a crisis coming, because to lift sanctions after all that, right, there's a real sensitivity to the shortness that can happen. And even if we see what's happening in Malta, right, a festival that last year won an award for the best festival in a particular category that brings 3,500 tourists, got cancelled last week because the organizers are scared that there are not going to be enough flights, or the flights are going to be too expensive for punters to actually book the flights. So we're shooting proposals everywhere, but I would take the discussion to the structural elements, right? So how are we going to really improve readiness to a world which is changing at the end of the day, right? So before, we've been accustomed to a crisis happening every decade, Now it's a perma crisis, right? Crises have become a permanent reality, being health, being fuel, being economic, being geopolitical tension, the axis of power. The whole Atlantic Treaty is up for I wouldn't say grabs, but we're seeing fractures which have now become structural in nature. So my issue as an economist is, listen, structurally, beyond all the freebies, beyond all the bonuses, what are we doing to really improve Malta's way of doing things, new economic niches, productivity? We haven't really talked about productivity, right? So there are a lot of assumptions that we're able to sustain this growth indefinitely. Now, it's true. We managed to sustain growth, get tourism growth, and also reduce the deficit, which
Yeah,
I
it's
think
quite a big leap. Yeah.
from an economic point of view, the economic story is extremely strong. But the worst thing that can happen to us as a nation is that we take that as a given when it's not, right? And the worst thing that can happen is that complacency starts settling in.
So how does a small country like Malta become more ready for these global challenges? I mean, okay, our economy is very resilient, but a lot of that came from basically slave labor over the last 15 years, TCNs, third country nationals. In fact, our last episode of Who's Who Talks, we had Momentum leader Arnold Casola talk about this, and one of his approaches to both improve the situation for all these third country nationals that are working, what, like 600 euros, some crazy amount, was to raise the minimum wage. That way they have more protections, and Maltese workers at the bottom, rungs have more protections. But this whole thing that basically the economy has been growing, and we're kind of ignoring the fact that it's growing off the hard work of a lot of these TCNs. Is that actually putting us at risk? Are we now reliant on third country nationals? Because everyone talks about the economy growing, but that growth came from somewhere.
Correct. So even if we look at the latest IMF report that came out on Malta, we are now, I mean, if you look at the population density, we're first by a mile, literally, right? So, and I think there's growing consensus on both sides that we're reaching the limits from a structural point of view of what the economy can continue producing with this current model. Now, there is no magic wand that you change an economic model instantly or over a year or two, right? So I think, and what we do have is Vision 2050, which is, I would say, for the first time in a good number of years, offers a very good, comprehensive, holistic, strategic blueprint, right? So that is good. And the key takeaway that comes out is that we need to move around from volume-driven growth to value-driven.
Okay.
Now, we've been saying this for decades, right? Even if we look at tourism. But the key, and this also ties to a lot of the other peripheral issues that we've been talking about, right? So I think one of Malta's biggest weaknesses, also when it comes to this concept of readiness resilience, is the lack of systems thinking. We always believe that everything is a silo, a box, and a pigeonhole. We tackle that in its content. But in reality, everything is part of a system. In Malta, even more so, right? Because although we believe ourselves to be at times the center of the world, we're a city in reality, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So systems thinking becomes much more important for an island like ours because the constraints are physical at the end of the day, right? So we're contained at the end of the day. Our land isn't infinite. Our resources aren't infinite. So even when tackling the TCN issue, the labor, the population, it's not about tackling those numbers first, right? It's about tackling the whole system, the whole economic structure as well.
Yep.
So, a case in point, if we look at tourism, tourism has literally post-COVID exploded, right? So what, we've hit 4 million tourists. But the industry, the tourism industry, as it is a very labor-intensive industry.
Okay.
And if we dream, because there's a lot of talk about AI, productivity, I mean, even economic studies, academic studies out there, sometimes it's a bit overrated, right? Between talk and evidence of this magical productivity bonus. That
Yes,
AI
very
will
hopeful,
give,
very hopeful.
Right? So it's always been, I mean, there's a Nobel Prize laureate in economics, right? That always says, we believe that technology is going to push productivity up. I see the statistics, but where are the computers at the end of the day? Because we're always saying, AI will come, robotics will come, we're going to see a big push in productivity, but it's not that easy. So let's take tourism, right? So tourism has been one of the most significant contributors to our economic growth, okay? But tourism, then, that huge number of tourists that came impacts everything. Infrastructure, accommodation, shift from hotels to Airbnbs. So we're building more apartments. We need more people. So it's and then when you look at the sectoral productivity, right? So when you look at how much value does each person employed in that sector generate? If you look at the tourism industry, it's most probably more or less a third or a fourth of what other sectors like gaming, financial services generate. So where am I going to?
Yeah.
It's we need to start talking much more of a transition, a transformation, and that takes time, right? So, and I think unfortunately now, most probably it's wishful thinking, because a campaign will always remain a campaign, right? So your short-term proposals, policies, and all of that will always take precedence. Why? Because unfortunately, we're living in a society where feedback loops are becoming shorter.
Do you like the idea of the super bonus, the €1,000 money, free money to everyone?
Even there, I think,
It's nice, no?
but I'm going to take it from a structural point of view. One issue that I really have, and even in some of the articles I have been pushing, even with subsidies are good, right? They are a temporary pain relief. But we're not talking about conditionality. And I think this country needs more conditionality. I help you if you do something.
Incentivizing, yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, this tax cuts that we have been accustomed to, from a political economic point of view, we're talking about taxes like they're a certain plague. Right? Taxes are not only about government revenue. More importantly, they're about incentives. And it is useless trying to tackle big issues, elephants in the room, like transport, without talking about incentives.
Okay.
And the incentives at times need to hit. If you really want to nudge behavior, it's not about offering a metro. It's about what is the true cost of not getting that metro. So unless we start having a mature discussion that, well, it needs to be over a long period of time, right? We're going to remain stuck in the rut, right? So I think, and what you said is really good. We need to start talking about incentives much more. And incentives go well beyond the positive. I mean, psychology literature shows that a negative nudge
Absolutely.
will help you incentivize behavior much more than a positive nudge. So even here, when we're talking about
Nobody always wants to do that, though. No one. It's always about the carrot.
yes, but that's
It's always about the carrot. No one wants to use the stick, right?
that's I think this is one issue, and there are a lot of other peripheral issues relating to this that no one wants to do it. No one wants. For example, I mean, now in a week, right? The votes would have been cast. Then the fun bit starts, governing,
Yeah.
right? But as a country, we still we never had this discussion around pay packages around ministers, right? So how do we really want to elevate the quality of the economy, decision making,
Yeah.
if we don't start from that?
So during election campaigns, as an economist, when you're hearing super bonus here, tax cut here, this sector, whatever, does it actually irritate you a little bit? Because you're like, you are just, this is surface level. We're not
Yes.
getting deep enough.
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
so you're seeing the people, cool, an extra 1,000 euros in my pocket at the end of the month, but you must be getting miffed, you know, like what is going on?
Yes, there is an element of frustration, and I think one of the best things that I ever did is cut myself from social media, so at least I'm a bit protected from that. But I have a big issue in general that the level of debate is superficial, right? So, and even if I go back to the discussion that we were talking about in terms of how do we transition the economy, right? So ultimately, what do we want? We want our workers, our workforce, to be earning more. We want wages to improve. Now, the only way that that can happen in today's day and age is if the whole educational attainment of the population starts increasing.
Okay.
Okay? Now, did we hear a proper debate on education, targets, how are we going to sustain the pipeline of students? What are the skills for tomorrow
Okay.
that we need? Are we preparing our students? How are we going to reduce the early school leaver rate? How are we going to increase tertiary graduation rates?
Okay.
How are we going to literally change the syllabus to make sure that our workforce is equipped for a world which is changing, right? I mean, today, our exams are still structured in terms of memory, remembering things by heart,
Daily
and
homework.
all of that.
You know,
The world is not there.
Well done.
you know,
Yeah.
you know what really gets to me about this?
Yeah.
The fact that nowadays, like homework is still being carried out, students still need to do essays, but they're just using ChatGPT or these AI tools.
Even more so.
And the teachers know it, but they can't do anything about it.
Crazy.
And
So
I
it's-
think we need to admit that these tools are here to stay. But in a world where there is an information overload at the end of the day, right? We're getting bombarded every day with information.
Absolutely.
Let's go to ChatGPT, you ask and you get. What about critical thinking? What about creativity? What about communication? I mean, at the end of the day, we're seeing students in this social media bubble always on the phone. What about communication skills face to face?
Absolutely.
So I would have loved to really have a proper debate on education. Maybe it's time to scrap
I got
our
you.
whole
Yeah.
examination system.
Is it?
I believe so, yes. Now, I am not an education specialist, but I think we're not really, at least I'm not seeing the new generation coming with really improved critical thinking skills. I actually think we're regressing.
Is there any
Even
system? Is there any system around the world, that educational system that you saw that would fit in Malta?
I think when you see the results, the rankings, Scandinavian remain up there, and they don't have exams till the age of 8. Here we're obsessed with exams.
You're so right. Absolutely.
We are obsessed. In Scandinavia, they're playing music, they're drawing, they're playing outside.
Absolutely.
And then Look at the number of unicorns that are coming out from
Well done.
Scandinavia.
Well done.
Look at the number of DJs, artists.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's something that I would say they're doing right.
Yeah.
So,
definitely,
and
but
I
the-
think here this is the biggest problem, right? So we I think have created this mini bubble that we believe we're completely insulated, and these catchphrases, you know, that we're the best. We're not the best
Malta,
in the
Skien.
world, you know.
Surprise,
So
surprise.
We have this.
Insular mentality.
You know what I think? You know what I-
In
you know what I-
Italian, there was
JP,
Ombelico
this
del
is
Mondo.
my-
You know, we think we're bank,
Yeah.
the be all and end all, but
Are we not?
Do you think there's a bit of a? This is the way I see it. There seems to be let's just stick with the education issue. Every politician that I speak to agrees that the education system needs to be reformed. I mean, they've been saying this for years. I remember this. They've been saying this since 10 years ago. Efres Bartolo was a big proponent of it, but nobody seems to actually want to be no one wants to be the one to actually bell the cat to say, look, this is happening. I'm going to take the flak of the confusion, the fact that all the teachers will need to be retrained, the fact that some elderly teachers might feel very confused about it, the fact you have to start from somewhere, like where are you going to start from? But someone needs to just
think
do
the
it, and no one
take-
wants to do it.
My take is, now it might be simplistic, right? At the end of the day, my take is that we do not discuss aspirations enough. as a country,
Okay. All right.
right? So I think we are, and ultimately it's the whole system which is designed that way, right? Because cycles are maximum 5 years. The Prime Minister always has a prerogative to call it before. So the horizon is short.
Okay.
When you're talking aspirations, you're talking 15 years, 20 years. Now, Vision 2050 tried to do that, or is trying to do that. Now, the test is in the delivery,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Implementation.
in the implementation. I mean, even now, proposals are nice, manifestos are nice. I mean, it's nice. You see 1,000 proposals, the other party comes up with 1,000 proposals. But ultimately, the true test is going to start on the 1st of June, right? Governability. And this is something as well that in this campaign I think is still missing. Listen, is the structure of government well suited for the world that we're living in today? Can we see more of a technocratic
Okay.
or a hybrid
Yeah.
governance structure? Is it
A
time?
government of Clyde Caruanas.
Well,
Is that a good or a bad thing?
but I think, and this is something that I think as a country we're deeply missing. This independent think tank, right? So in all countries abroad, you have think tanks that can nudge, that
Absolutely.
can be provocative, that can eventually cost proposals as well, because it's easy to talk, it's easy to promise, but then how are these projects going to be financed? What is going to be their impact? Even in terms of past, we policy impact assessments in Malta are still lacking. We do them when they're EU funded because we're mandated to.
There was a think tank in the past.
In the
called-
past,
called the
Today
Public
Today.
Policy Institute. There
But
were a lot of big people were involved in it, academics, economists, even some people with business experience. And it closed down because of a lack of business funding. They couldn't find sponsorships because nobody wanted to be associated with something that they believed would go again with critical of the government.
And
So
you have
how
a lot
realistic
of-
is this?
And you have a lot of very strong lobby groups already, right? So teachers, Chamber of Commerce,
Absolutely.
Chamber of
Unions, yeah.
Commerce. But still, they still carry certain blinkers or come with a bias because of their members. They
Absolutely.
still, and unfortunately, I wouldn't. Even from a social perspective, a libertarian perspective, we're still lacking in terms of bold policy ideas that
But can a think tank even work in Malta? Last time in 2018, they set one up and it just didn't work. They ran out of money.
Yes,
In
I
a
mean,
country in Malta
it
where everyone's
might
scared of the
be-
government.
It might be idealistic, right? But maybe
Yeah.
there are avenues for EU funds, civil
Okay,
society.
okay.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think the country desperately needs money,
Absolutely.
right? And I think you need, even in terms of transport, right? You have a pitching of idea, which is best at the end, but no one speaks about the need at the end of the day for license, circulation, taxes. I mean,
Yeah.
for heaven's sake, these need
It's about
to be
time.
done. No one is going to,
yeah.
unfortunately, no one is going to, as you said, take, and the same with ministerial pays. No one is going to have the courage to say, listen, CEOs of listed companies in Malta, their average salary is anything between 150 to 250,000. At the end of the day, the prime minister of a country requires that, right? And how can you attract good people with a career rather than young people that go into politics?
And that can also lead to corruption as well. So just for people who might not know, how much does the Prime Minister of Malta make a year?
60, 70, I think.
And you said CEOs on average are about 150 plus.
More the lower
There you
end.
go. So,
Right, and
it sends a message.
I mean, the government remains a main employer.
Mashak.
And if you're prime minister,
The
you're 24/7. So how can you attract a new round pool of talent, which
High-level
today
talent.
is getting? I mean, today you have very good, experienced, talented people with experience abroad building businesses. How are you going to incentivize the partners of Big Fours? How will they make the switch?
We should offer them a Panama account when they join the government.
So obviously, this has been a very kind of goodie focused campaign.
Yep.
There have been a couple of bold policies put forward, but you had come up with a very interesting vision for the economy. You said Malta should tap into the low altitude economy, which is basically the use of drones, the registration, and even testing of drones. So do you really envision a future where how will it look like? Will we just look out of the window and just see drones delivering food, delivering messages?
I would actually
delivering
take that
taxis.
proposal
How is it like?
one step back, right? Because that proposal is based on another concept that Malta does not really leverage, and that is the living lab concept, right? And I think we have forgotten our own story of success as a country, right? So Vodafone, back in the early 90s, most probably, Malta was the first outpost after the UK before it went on a huge global international expansion.
Interesting.
Right? So Vodafone said, where can I test the ability of my team to set up a foreign outpost
At a national scale.
At a national scale. And they chose Malta. Because Malta's small at the end of the day. Malta's small, you have access to policymakers, you have access to regulators, which is a bloody good thing, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and the ability for industry, regulators, and government to come together to brainstorm. And I mean, even if you look at the way Malta navigated each crisis, it was as a result of this open communication. What do you need for you to keep your employees on the books? I only have orders for 1 day a week, but eventually I need them retrained in advanced engineering. So government would say, okay, keep them for 5 days a week. You'll pay them for 1 day, I'll pay them for 4 days, but on those 4 days, they have to do training. And that's what happened in 2008. That's what happened recently. And today, we're attracting investments like ST, Delarue. They're expanding. Why? Because that workforce, when they had a
slow moment.
Slow moment, they retrained their people. Right?
Interesting.
So
are we losing that living lab aspect though?
We're not enough.
We're not, yeah.
We're not, right? And if we look at the drones, one, it will help us solve a lot of our own issues, right? Because, I mean, we're small. If we have, and in today's world, data is the new oil, right?
Also, absolutely.
So, and I don't think we're leveraging that data enough from a health perspective, from a traffic perspective, from a behavioral perspective, from a company perspective, right? So data still siloed, where in a country like Malta, data should be integrated, right? So you already have elements that are being implemented. Transport Malta recently, I think 2 weeks ago, said that they're launching a traffic brain, taking
Yes.
sources from everything. But with the low altitude economy, which is going to be the one of the huge sectors that are just going to explode on a global level, okay? And not only that, low altitude is one, but then space is another big thing. Space, we're already seeing some things. But in reality, because we're not talking about new economic sectors, right? Because we
They
always
exist,
have
yeah.
this tendency of chasing the new things. In reality, it's not a new. In reality, it's building on what you already have. And what does Malta have, which has worked phenomenally well on an international level? Maritime registry,
Yep.
aircraft registry. In essence, these are what? Assets, right? So instead of a ship, now you're registering a drone or you're registering a satellite cube. So the thinking remains the same.
Cool.
So what we really need to do is utilize the space. And this would be very, very good also for an island like Gozo, right? So where you can have you have easy access to surveillance area, the sea. You can test agricultural elements. I mean, and we have been placed in a unique strategic position, right? In Europe, but facing Africa. And drones in Africa. Now, I spent quite a lot of time in Africa. Drones are going to be the next big thing in Africa.
Okay.
Even if you're looking at agriculture, if you're looking at medical supplies, vaccines, and all of that. I mean, Africa is crying for these things.
Interesting.
Where else can you get a place? Test things in, at the end of the day, a really developed setting. Get them certified.
Absolutely. European.
Why? Because at the end of the day, these assets as well need insurance. Malta we're the only country with a protected cell structure in Europe, which will be perfect.
Was that a protected?
It's a protected cell structure. So the only countries in the world that offer this is Bermuda and Malta. Malta's in the EU.
And you don't want to go to Bermuda.
You know, so we are sitting on things that are already working well.
We only have a few minutes left, but I love this idea. But I just want to burn through a few things that we've been hearing in this election, some proposals, especially mentioning the sea, etc. So one thing is one of the smaller parties, Ahwa Maltin. So motorsports, the famous motorsports track. Every election is brought back up. We're going to build it. It's going to be at Hull Fire. It's going to be in Taal. It's going to be wherever. Election comes, it is never built. These guys propose doing it offshore, building a motorsports island. Is that feasible? What's your take on that?
Even here, the whole offshore campaign and concept, it's something that will happen and has to happen. But if we're going to do it, what are the priorities? Can it be that we think maybe outside the box and put heavy industry there?
Yeah.
Can it be something that we place other elements that take space and can liberate industrial areas and congested areas or schools? So even there, I think that the concept of reclaiming land, it's not a question of if, but when.
It's an essential.
And we need it.
Wow.
We need it.
To expand our territory.
To expand our territory.
It's an essential for Malta's future.
And it might be a very good tool of taking things which take up space here.
Exactly.
And heavy industry can be one. Waste, management, treatment, right? Why not? Now, this motorsports is another thing. I mean, one, we're pitching to people that have a hobby,
Absolutely. Specific.
but and then,
Yeah.
is there a market that we can attract in doing so,
In a bigger
given
picture.
our climate?
Okay.
You know, so I think we sometimes we need to see things much more from a 360 and then really prioritize things given our limited space, our limited
But there is
resources.
value to the idea.
But I go back to my previous comment, aspirations.
Yeah.
Where do we see ourselves as a country, our children? What is the standard of living that we want to attain?
And just
Sorry.
last thing, I mean, I'm gonna close off. Mediterranean petrol station, a station in the middle of the sea of Herds Bank, and this was a PN proposal. So this would be a petrol station in the middle of the Mediterranean, offshore again. Is that feasible? Does that make sense?
Well, I think I didn't go into the
Yeah.
detail of it. I think there are a lot of gray areas as well in terms of
There are.
legal implications, environmental implications, and all of that. We know that Malta's position really works from a bunkering perspective, right? It's tried and tested and it's there. We also know that the maritime sector is going to go through a whole transition in terms of type of fuel that it needs: green ammonia, hydrogen. So this week, for example, Africa as well, South Africa just secured a huge multi-billion investment in green hydrogen and ammonia for maritime trade. So there is going to be a unique opportunity for us to tap into, given our strategic location, right? But one has to see what is the best infrastructure for that, and also the whole international legal space.
So, just to close it off, I mean, there's, I think you made a very important point about aspirations, and in fact, we've seen, there's been many proposals put forward by both parties, lots of goodies, some other more bold ideas, but issues like land reclamation, issues like the drone economy, proper niches like proper reform of the education system. These big issues, have been, if not entirely absent, they've been quite sidelined. Do you think that as a nation we've sort of forgotten how to dream big?
And it returns to a previous point, right? That success can become our Achilles heel as a country. And I think we have been comfortable for far too long, which is a good thing, which is inherently a good thing, but being in a state of pretty unique when you see other European countries, right? So it's not a question that there is unemployment issue. Actually, we have a labor issue, which is the reverse, right? So I think that sometimes has the risk, and I think that is Malta's biggest risk, that we might take that as a given because we have been accustomed to that. And the world out there is fundamentally and structurally different to what the world has been 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and I dare to say a year ago as well, right? So we have been really focusing on resilience, right? And it's true, we have been remarkably resilient. But the question now has to be, are we ready? Because resilient can be too late. Resilience is bouncing back from a shock. What we now need to do is readiness. Yes. Are we ready for the world of tomorrow?
So I think everyone's practically ready to vote already as a country. That's a different story, and it's a very interesting debate. JP Fabri, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.